Happy Friday, everybody. Today is Friday, February 17th. Just Baseball Show. You got the three of us. Me, Jack, you, Peter, you, Aram. We're going to launch into the positional top tens, which I called apples to apples when I was texting both of you this morning. But this one, instead of APPLE, we're going APPEL because Peter took the liberty of putting together a top 100 players in baseball list. And he says that it's the perfect list.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a fine list. If you had to choose an adjective, Aram, how would you describe this list?
Unique.
Okay, so we're going to talk about this unique, fine, perfect list today, and we're going to break it down. This list is now live at justbaseball.com. So go open it up at justbaseball.com. Follow along. It is Peter Apple's top 100 MLB players for
with
2023.
Videos, with cool little GIFs of really good players doing good things in there too. So that's kind of fun to look at.
Yeah, 100%. And this is awesome because we get to talk about 100 of the top 150 players in baseball. But we get to talk about the best players in baseball, which is fun. We just get to talk about rankings here. And this is apples to oranges. And it's something that Aram has kind of taken on with the top 100 prospects, although it's a different look. Peter is answering the question that is at everybody's front of their mind, right? Who's better, Corbin Burnes or Freddie Freeman? And Peter answers that for us.
I do. This is a flawless list. And the reason I say flawless is because it's my list. It's my opinion. Now, we did rank our top 10 by position, and it's a lot based on that because I agree with a lot of the decisions that we came to. As a staff, those are going to come out on justbaseball.com. Those are going to come out on the podcast. Those are going to come out first on the TikTok. And then to round it all out, I will then drop my top 100 on social. But this is a first look, which, again, you can find on justbaseball.com. The hardest thing to do in this list is compare relievers to the rest of the league. It's hard to compare starting pitchers. It's to outfielders. How do you correctly do that? This is not a WAR leaderboard. If you want to see a WAR leaderboard, go check out Fangraphs, go check out Baseball Reference. These are the top 100 players, in my opinion, and I cannot wait to debate.
But before we launch into this, I want you to explain the difference between a top 100 prospect list and a top 100 player list.
Yeah, so I this is the perfect thing for Peter to do, and that's why so we had we'll peel back the curtain here. Peter Peter's the director of content strategy. He just knows content. He puts out content, and we're always on board for whatever ideas, and we all come together and usually 99% of the time agree. This was the one time where I was like, Peter, if I have to rank Edwin Diaz against Jeff McNeil, I'm going to have an aneurysm. I can't do it. And Peter's like, that's fine. I'll do it then. And I was like, I can't combat that. But Peter did bring up the question of well, how do you do it with prospects then? And I thought about it and I was like, honestly, it is still really annoying. That's probably my least favorite thing I have to do is compare the pitching prospect to the offensive prospect. And ultimately what I really bank on is just their floor, because I can always fall back on, what is the likelihood of this guy becoming a big leaguer? And ultimately that's what I'm going to rank is what's the likelihood of him becoming a big leaguer and what's his ceiling as a big leaguer. Whereas what makes this even harder, I think, is that with the big league side of it is that all of these guys are big leaguers and all of them are proven good big leaguers because it's the top 100 ones. And I was like, dude, I'm going to run in circles. And literally Peter was like, I'll do it myself. And we were like, that sounds great. We will then make a podcast where we just rip apart your list and have some fun with it. So Peter took the time to do it. And I'm glad that he did because it's great content. It's great radio. But yeah, I would say the biggest difference is just that I'm trying to rank the guys that have the chance to be on this list that Peter just made. Whereas now with these guys, they're all already who they are. And it's we're talking about little changes in the margins that can put one guy above another. And the fluidity of that is pretty nuts.
Peter, are you ready? Are you in a good emotional state if we turn the next 50 minutes into the roast of Peter Apple?
He lives for this, dude.
I live for this.
Okay.
Back-to-back days. I just did the college baseball preview with our guy, Peter Flaherty. And now we're talking my top 100 players. I am on cloud 9. You can't lower my happiness. I just got to break down college baseball, and I'm really loving college baseball this year, especially. And I got to do that. Now I get to get roasted. It's my favorite time of the year.
Before I do try my hardest to lower your happiness, I do have to ask you about. I got to ask both you guys about the Corbin Burnes thing. I don't know if you saw it.
True. We should talk about that.
Yeah, the MLB.com beat writer for the Brewers. He I don't think it was a one-on-one. I think it was like a media scrum. But the news on Wednesday was that Corbin Burnes lost his arbitration case to the Milwaukee Brewers, and that never sits well with a player. And Burnes said some really interesting things. He said in the hearing, the Brewers almost made a case to like pin them missing the playoffs on Corbin Burnes in 2022. Burnes had a sub-3 ERA. He led Major League Baseball in starts. He led the National League in strikeouts, and he was an all-star. And they pin not making the postseason on Corbin Burnes, and they don't give him the... I don't know how far they were separated by. I think it was like $1 million, maybe like 1.5.
I think it was less.
It could have been less.
750,000. It was 10.75 to 10.01, and the Brewers won at 10.01.
Dude, I mean, that is ridiculous. And Corbin Burnes said very pointedly, he said, this damaged the relationship. I'm absolutely hurt by this.
Yeah.
If they just screwed themselves out of a possible extension conversation with Corbin Burnes, I hope they're really happy about that $600,000 that they saved.
Yeah, friend of the program, Foolish Baseball, broke it down in what I thought was a really good way on a tweet. He basically said that, these hearings happen all the time, and it's not often that they damage relationships, but it's also not often that a player comes out and is that visibly upset, and a player comes out and cites things that we believe, and I think most baseball fans believe, are completely untrue. If the Brewers truly think that Corbin Burnes was the reason they didn't make the playoffs, this team will never succeed because they don't understand baseball. Corbin Burnes was one of the best pitchers in baseball last year, has been one of the best players in Major League Baseball for the past couple of years, Cy Young Award winner. If he's out on the open market, yeah, 750,000 is a rounding error because he's as good as anybody in baseball, and he's still young, and he had that one season with the worst ERA. Then he developed the cutter and never looked back. He's one of my favorite pitchers to watch. I'm feeling for him. I even commented under that video. If you'll go to the Yankees, I'll figure out a way to pony up that 750,000. I'll take out some loans. We'll get you over here. We'll treat you right. The fans might not, but I will treat you right because I understand the value of Corbin Burnes. And the Brewers, they wanted to save a little bit of money, and I think it could ruin the relationship forever.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so you've got a guy coming off of a Cy Young, and the season after he wins the National League Cy Young, he gives you 35 more innings. He crosses the 200-inning threshold, which is something that not many starting pitchers in Major League Baseball do anymore. He punched out more guys than he did in his Cy Young season. Obviously, the ERA jumped about half a run. The FIP jumped a couple of runs because his FIP was negative. I think it was, 163 to 314. And the WHIP jumped very, very marginally. So, the percentage numbers and the rate numbers jumped a teensy bit. But in terms of accumulation, he was on the hill more, and he was pretty much just as effective for them after he won the Cy Young Award. And you're taking this dude to court over less than $1 million.
And the craziest part is they didn't have to, and the last thing I'll kind of say on this is it didn't have to be 10.75, right? Usually you'll see this player and this team settle, so if they're 750 apart, maybe they meet in the middle, maybe they meet a little bit closer to Corbin. I don't know exactly, what went back and forth there, but it wouldn't have been the entire number. I'm sure Corbin Burnes had a little bit of wiggle room there of maybe $100,000, whatever it is. So that's the other crazy part of it, is it's probably about even less. And if you are keen on extending a guy, and maybe this is kind of a little bit of a clue into how the Brewers plan to, move forward with or without Corbin Burnes, because if I'm getting ready to potentially talk about an extension with this guy, the last thing I want to do is put a bad taste in his mouth over 750,000, because he's going to say, fuck you. I'm not going to, give you that extra year on the back end. I'm not giving you the hometown discount, and I'm going to push hard and try to send myself to free agency if you're going to nickel and dime me in arbitration, a year before. Yeah, I guess it's 2 years before he hits free agency. But that's the thing that really gets me is maybe that just really tells you what their long-term plan is with him. And you remember what Xavier Scruggs said? And I don't know if that just came from a gut feeling or a source. He didn't really clarify on that when he was on the podcast, but it was literally like oh, by the way, before you let me go, I think Corbin Burnes gets dealt. And I think he said this offseason, obviously that didn't happen. But if this Brewers team struggles, and I still think they're going to be pretty good. We talked about it. We like their offseason overall. But like, let's say they struggle or somebody else really gets out ahead in the division. It's going to be hard to make the playoffs in the wild card. I wouldn't be shocked if he's sent out of town, especially now.
Is Corbin Burnes making starts for the Milwaukee Brewers in August of 2023? Yes or no?
I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say yes, but I'm not confident. It's not a confident yes.
I'm going to say no.
And wow. I don't hate that answer. My last thing that I want to say on him is I don't want to speak for him because I don't know him. I have not talked to him, but I think I can infer. Yeah, I think I can infer that he doesn't care about the $750,000. He cares about what they said in that meeting. That's what's going to ruin the relationship, not the rounding error of when he goes to free agency and he makes 50 billion times that. Mm-hmm. It's the language they used. I just can't believe they won.
Yeah.
How'd they win?
I don't know how they won. That's a weird part.
So the last thing, actually, sorry, I got one more on that. Is like,
and then I have 5 last things.
Yeah, 5 last things. They're always going to look for a reason to make their case, right? And I think the case that they could have made sans the narrative thing about the playoffs, which is bizarre. You can't even prove that with statistics. Yeah. Just say that he took a step back last year, and then before his Cy Young year, he had the highest ERA in Major League Baseball. You could say, I don't know if he's going to duplicate this. You could put that argument together, and Corbin's not going to take that personally because that's how arbitration hearings work. I assume, and again, I don't want to speak for him either, it gets personal when you're attributing team loss or lack of team success to him. You should be looking at these players in a vacuum, and if you kind of point out this number, that number, it just kind of, you realize that that's just what comes with the territory of arbitration. It's always going to be a little bit weird and wonky, but like when you're attributing a lack of team success to him, I think that's where it enters another level in another area that it just shouldn't. And again, we're not in a lot of arbitration meetings, but clearly something was off about this one compared to others.
You're not in a lot of arbitration. I'm not in any arbitration.
Any, I would say I'm not in
Arm and I are in some. We just leave
we sneak into a few.
Yeah, we're in some. More than a few. We're in most.
Well, Peter will be in Cal Quantrill's arbitration meeting, and that's nearly a transition. This is not a last thing. This is building on Aram's last thing. I'm a huge fan of Russillo. I think the Ryan Russillo podcast on the Ringer is awesome. Russillo had somebody on to talk about the Lamar Jackson situation and him representing himself. And I'm blanking with who he had on because he's had a bunch of people on to talk about the Lamar Jackson thing over the past couple of weeks. But they made a great point, and it's a lot of those players, they think they want to hear the things that these teams will say to their agents. They don't want to hear those things. Like, that's why you have an agent. Like, they can say the bad thing about the player to an agent. That's what an arbitration hearing is. You're going to arbitration to hear why your team thinks you are less valuable than you think you are.
Yeah, I'd rather not go.
I'd rather not go.
That's what happened with Judge, and then he hit 62 home runs. So is Corbin Burnes going to put up a 1.08 ERA like DeGrom did in 90 innings?
And then refuse an extension and go
I would love that. Somewhere else. I'm rooting for him so hard.
Yeah. And that's why Corbin Burnes is number 89 on Peter Apple's top 100 players. 123. All right, you ready?
Are you ready? Let's go.
So we're going to go 100-1 here. And again, this article is live at justbaseball.com. Peter Apple's top 100 MLB players for 2023. Peter, is Cal Quantrill a top 100 player in baseball?
Yes, he comes in at number 100.
Is Cal Quantrill going to be better than Joe Musgrove in 2023?
I think he has a pretty good shot of having a lower ERA. I think he does.
Is Cal going to be better than Yu Darvish?
I think he does. I think he has a lower ERA in 2023 than both of them.
Logan Gilbert?
Yep.
Kyle Wright?
Yep.
Okay, so Musgrove, Darvish, Kyle Wright, and Logan Gilbert are not on the top 100, and Cal Quantrill is.
So, we interviewed Joe Posnanski, one of my favorite interviews that we've ever done, and I wrote this in the summary on my top 100 players. And he made a really good point, something that still sticks with me. And it was kind of the reason I wanted to make this list. When he wrote the Baseball 100, he had Ichiro at number 100. And Ichiro, by the numbers in Major League Baseball, was not a top 100 player of all time. But of course, he had that history in Japan. And it's impossible to compare an all-time list to this list. But again, it is my list. And
no, you just compared Cal Quantrill to Ichiro Suzuki. Can we get that out of the way?
We can. And at the same time, Cal Quantrill in 2020 had a 2.25 ERA, 32 innings, just a little taste. Then he had a 2.89 ERA in 2021. But the peripherals looked bad. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys, and he doesn't limit the walks. But then he limited the walks more and put up a 3.38 ERA, which we will get Aram his tattoo soon. Cal Quantrill plays on a team that helps out his strengths. He is a guy who pitches to contact. That's why in terms of average exit velocity, in terms of our hit rates, he's in the upper third of Major League Baseball. He limits hard contact. And that helps because he has one of the best defenses behind him. So I personally think that while Yu Darvish, while Joe Musgrove, while Kyle Wright may have better stuff, Cal Quantrill should be in the low threes in the ERA again, throwing close to 200 innings. He was a stud again in the playoffs. He's just a stud pitcher, and he has to be on my top 100 list, and he comes in at number 100.
It's not as much about Quantrill for me. It's just like, how is Yu Darvish not a top 100 player in Major League Baseball? 194 and 2/3 innings last year, a 3.10 ERA. He was 13th, in pitcher F4. He saw his velo actually jump by a half a mile per hour. He just signed the third 6-year contract. So the Padres somehow believe that he's not only going to be same form next year, probably 5 years beyond that. I don't think he's going to do it the whole contract, but at least a few years. Like what resulted in Yu Darvish not being a top 100 player when somebody like Logan Webb is in the 80s?
Yeah, totally understand that. 2021, Yu Darvish should have a 4.22 ERA. And he's also going to be 30.
2020? What about 2020?
2020 had a 2.01 ERA in 2020.
Young voting in that sprint of a
and
season.
Cal Quantrill, yes, did have a 2.25 ERA. No, it's fine. They both had great ERAs in 2020.
Yeah.
But since 2021, Cal Quantrill is a 3.14 ERA, and Yu Darvish is behind that. Now, ERA, we're just talking ERA here. So there's a lot of other stats that I like to use when it comes to pitchers, and ERA is not at the top of this list. But in terms of a production standpoint, in terms of what I think Cal Quantrill keeps improving year over year, I was more willing to put him at number 100 instead of a 37-year-old Darvish, who I do expect to pitch well, but I think they're going to be close in innings. I think it's going to be interesting to see who finishes with a better ERA in 2023. Big game, give me Cal.
Okay, so Joe Musgrove.
What about Musgrove? Yeah,
Musgrove is averaging 180 innings over each of the past two seasons. You combine 2021 and 22, he has a 3.06 ERA. He's punching out 9.5 per 9. He's walking less than 2.5 per 9. I mean, why is Joe Musgrove not a top 100 guy?
Joe Musgrove also, since 2021, is lower than Cal Quantrill. Joe Musgrove is one of those guys. Like, if we want to spend the entire time on proving these starting pitchers versus Cal Quantrill, number 100.
It's not even Quantrill. It's top 100 guy. Like,
yeah, true. Yeah. Do you want to compare him to other pitchers on the list too? We can do that. But Joe Musgrove,
just anyone,
Darvish,
Ozzie Albies, Anthony Rendon.
Yes. Let's go through it.
Like, how is Anthony Rendon, who's been on the field for 5 games in the last 3 years, like, how is that guy better than Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove?
Hold on. You said Cal better than Musgrove since the start of 2021?
I would say so.
Musgrove is a 3.06 ERA. Cal is a 3.16 ERA. Musgrove has thrown 35 more innings than Cal.
Yes.
Okay.
What about Rendon? Why is Rendon on this list? Like, I understand what Rendon can be.
Peter and I did talk about this.
Okay.
Yeah. So Rendon, we know if he stays healthy and he's on the field, which we expect him to be in 2023, he's a guy who's left off a lot of top 100s, and I feel like people forgot about him. Aram, you and I remember when we were arguing with Jack over the top third baseman earlier in this season, or not earlier in the season, like I think it was maybe past when we did the top 10 third baseman, like he was one of the best third basemen, and he's just had these injuries if we're looking at 2023, because this is a list for 2023, are we blaming him for that? Like, is he just a guy who's going to be a middling kind of player? I think we could look back, and if he wasn't on the list and he does what Anthony Rendon should do, or even 80% of it, we're going to look back and be like, how was Rendon not a top 100 player? That's why he's at the tail end. Albies is a guy who doesn't rate well by WRC plus. But what I see with Ozzy Albies is I see an extra base hit machine. I see one of the better defenders at second base, and he was banged up last year with an injury. I think that Ozzy Albies now, with all these new rate stats at WRC plus, the fact that he doesn't walk that much, he's a guy who could hit 30 home runs and hit 40 doubles. Like, I don't know if he's going to do that, but that's in his bag with fantastic defense at second base. I think the addition of new age analytics has dampened what you get with Ozzy Albies. When you really look on the field, I don't see anything that he does even really at an average level.
I mean, the 2021 season, I do agree on, like, you look at the 3.9 F4 in the 2020 season or 2021 season from Albies, for example. He drove in 106 runs, hit 30 bombs, and stole 20 bags. Like, I know that somehow averaged out to a 107 WRC plus.
Yeah, not sure
because he doesn't walk.
The walking kills him. And also, if that guy just scrapped the left-handed swing, I think I'd put him top 50. So I'll give you that. If he could just even be like a little bit better with the left-handed swing. Rendon, I hear you. It's just like when I see, and I promise I won't bring them up again, but when I see Musgrove and Darvish off and I'm looking at next year, like, I'm feeling better about those guys than maybe Anthony Rendon, though I know I could eat crow on that. Like, his stretch from, what was it, 2018 to 2020 was, some of the best in baseball, period, in terms of F4, in terms of any number you want to find, doubles, everything. So I get it from that standpoint, but I don't know if we can, like, trust Rendon at this point. I think this is the last year where, like, if he's not healthy, you're leaving him off of every single list after this year for sure.
Exactly. And that was it's funny. You guys mentioned Musgrove, Darvish, and the one that I really felt bad leading off again was Yandy Diaz. Because Yandy Diaz, I believe, like, he put up a 146 WRC plus. The only thing that's wrong with Yandy Diaz's game is he has a noodle over there at third base, like, in terms of his arm, but he can still pick it over there. The power isn't there, but he walks a crazy amount, hits a bunch of doubles. Like, he's a really good player. That was a tough one leaving off the list too. But Musgrove, Darvish, Yandy Diaz, those were the three where I thought to myself, how do I make room? But I just didn't make room.
Hey, we're still in the 90s. Is Harrison Bader better than Jazz Chisholm?
Oh, God.
I think so. I think Harrison Bader could have a great season for the Yankees, because I also think that he has a higher floor than Jazz, just because Jazz is transitioning to a new position. And he's really has 60 great games of Major League Baseball under his belt. From a talent perspective, I think Jazz is more talented than Harrison Bader. But if I had to bet on who has the higher WAR, I'm going to bet on the guy with Bader. And I know Arm's going to bring up injury concerns with Harrison Bader. And I know that they're there, but I think they're more prevalent with Jazz, especially because Jazz is moving positions. We saw what Harrison Bader can do with the bat in the playoffs, and that matters to me. Like, it's hard to quantify that, but I think playoff performance, it's selective for some players, so it's not going to move you up and down crazy amounts. But if there's two players who I think are pretty damn equal, and I did see one player go nuclear with the bat, and I know that he could win a Gold Glove in center field, I'm just going to rank that guy slightly higher, even though I know I could eat crow. Let's say he transitions well to the outfield and puts up 30 home runs and 20 stolen bases. Then I look back and I'm like, I got that one wrong. But I do think the safer bet is the guy who could win the Gold Glove and have a 2020 season. And that's what I think with Bader.
That's fair. I guess in Yankee Stadium, maybe you can see a little bit of a tick up in the home run output. He was spectacular in the playoffs. If Jazz Chisholm was staying at second base, are you still putting Harrison Bader ahead of him?
No, the answer is no. You don't have to think about it.
It's a tough one.
No, the answer is no.
I don't know. we haven't seen a full season from him, like really put all this talent together. And that's why I'm not taking it away from him, because I see the talent. It's crazy.
Maybe
like,
see
I would,
one-
if he was staying at second base, I think I would have him slightly higher than Bader. I'm worried about the transition. I don't know how good of a center fielder he's truly going to be.
We haven't seen a full season from him, so you're doubting it, but you've got Gunnar Henderson and Corbin Carroll at 85 and 86 above Jazz Chisholm.
And that's why, because I think I believe in those bats a little bit more. And I think that's why it's a tough way to make this ranking, is because you can poke holes in a lot of different things. But it's my belief in Gunnar Henderson's bat, and he's going to be playing third base and shortstop where we know he can play. And that's why Jazz is one of the toughest players to rank on this list, because from a sheer talent perspective, his ceiling is as high as some players. He said it himself. He said he's the best player in baseball. You see that interview, Arm? He said he's the best player in baseball, like when healthy.
That guy.
And it's just like, he was like, yeah, I was running with injuries last year, and I was running till the wheels fell off, and I just don't know what to do with him. He's a very hard player to rank. Talent is crazy, but like, would we be surprised if he only plays 100 games and doesn't tap into that potential and doesn't adjust well to center field? I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, if he played 100 games based on what he was on pace for, he probably would have had like a 4 F4.
Yeah.
At that point, which would match Bader's career high in 138 games in 2018, which, it should be interesting. I'm excited to see how that goes down, because for transparency's sake, Peter and I have a friendly wager on that one of who.
And that's also counting in WAR at a position that he's used to. Let's see how much he accumulates in center field in a new position that he's never played before.
I think he's going to be okay. Like, I don't think he's going to be great out there. I think he can get by, even if he's subpar out there with what he was doing offensively, power, stolen base wise. Like, I think he'll find a way to be valuable in the F4 department. But it's going to be fun to see how that all
top 100 player. I still think he's great. Like, it's also like, that's the thing too. It's like, I still think all of these guys are great. It's just about their specific ranking, which is the fun of debating. I just think Bader is the safer play. And I also think that he could have a career year here with the Yankees, because he is a free agent next year too. Like, this could be his best season in Major League Baseball to date. And even if he doesn't hit that well, I know he's going to be great at a premium position in center.
So I'm jumping to the low 80s here. The stack is really interesting. 78 to 81. Jeremy Pena, Luis Robert, Ketel Marte, Alejandro Kirk. And Kirk is 82. Pena is 78, or Kirk is 81. Pena is 78. Do you think that Ketel Marte and Jeremy Pena are going to have better years than Alejandro Kirk?
I think that was another tough stack where I think you could kind of rank them in any way you want, but I chose them to rank them this way because I think maybe the safest player out of all those is the shortstop with the Gold Glove caliber glove. And again, I hate to do this, but sometimes this is a slight separator. Is Jeremy Pena was the World Series MVP. I love how he showed up in the brightest moments, and that matters to me. Jeremy Pena has that dog in him, and a lot of stat people are not going to love that, but that matters to me. And he, in the brightest moments, became a star. Now, he had a bad second half offensively, but still over the entire season, he was at least an average-ish hitter, I would say. Does he take a step up? I think it's entirely possible. I know Arm loved him as a prospect coming up. That's what kind of showed me, at least, where I was like, oh, I got to watch out for this Jeremy Pena guy. So I think if he is a slightly above average hitter, which I think he can be, I think he could even be better with the glove and establish himself as one of the better shortstops in baseball. And when I'm deciding between all these guys, like the catcher is very important. Alejandro Kirk is one of the best catchers in baseball, but I just believe that Pena's glove over all of these guys is the safest bet out of everyone. Ketel Marte, Luis Robert, I wanted to rank them right next to each other because the talent is out of this world. Ketel Marte could be a 6-win player because he's a freak of nature. Luis Robert, same thing. Talking about defense in center field, a wizard. Similar to Buxton.
Player. Luis Robert, if he played 150 games, could be an 8-win player.
I still think in the back of my mind he could win an MVP in the American League. That's how talented 100%. He is.
I think I'm going to put $10 on him to win an MVP every year until he's out of the league.
Because he might do it one year and you're going to make your money, I think. But the safest bet for 2023 in my eyes is the Gold Glove caliber shortstop.
That's fair.
Who at his worst is an average hitter.
And
that's my pick.
What I like too with, and I like where Pena's at, because with him too is even if he's not hitting for average, he's still gonna run into 20 home runs. Like he's still gonna crush mistakes, and he's gonna do enough. The thing that really, you talked about postseason performances, like the league adjusted to Pena a little bit in the second half. And then you don't think that they've got that game plan ironed out perfectly for the postseason. Like, of course, they were pitching him the same way that he was getting pitched in the second half, but he adjusted back on the biggest stage, like Peter, kind of mentioned, and had that success there. I feel safe with the Jeremy Pena there, because with the glove, with the power, he's gonna be a 3-win player at worst, I think. And you hope he's on the field the whole year. Where I'm getting nervous, and I can see why, and I know Peter's always loved Ketel Marte, but he finally played a full-ish season last year. Before it was like, okay, well, like we need to see him play a full year. They move him from center field to second base, to the infield, to kind of try to stay healthier, stay on the field more frequently. He was on the field a lot last year and like wasn't that good. Like, are we not worried about last year's performance? Because I think Kirk's only going to get better. 3.8 F4, raked, walked as much as he struck out, sneaky power. Do you feel confident in Marte having a better year than Kirk?
Yeah, I agree with you, because Marte had 558 plate appearances last year, and he had a 728 OPS.
Yeah, like, what the hell?
But the max exit velocity is 96th percentile. He's still fast, like 41st percentile sprint speed. I almost don't believe that. And there is some positional versatility there, which I think is important. The fact that he can play second base, he can play center field. I still think there's a freak talent hidden in there. And I also think that he was dealing a little bit. I think he was still kind of banged up last year, and he had a 909 OPS in 2021. Like, he only played 90 games, but it's like the crazy potential could be there where if he puts it together, he blows Alejandro Kirk out of the water, because I could also see Kirk, that was maybe his best offensive season ever. I don't know if he gets better than that, while Marte, I'm almost buying low. And it's so close. They're right there with each other. But just the extra Marte magic, the things that could put him over the top, gave him that extra boost, where I don't see even more from Kirk. I see a lot of the same, maybe even a downtick, but I still think both of them are great. But I slightly lean Ketel because, I love Ketel Marte. I had to drop him. Like, I had him when I originally made this drift. I dropped him because I was like, I can't really prove that he should be in the top 70 or top 60.
No way.
But like, there's a talent in there that I'm in love with, that I think if he puts it together can be an 850 OPS guy while playing multiple positions and just being a freak out there.
So you're buying the dip on Bobby Witt Jr. You've got him ahead of Matt Chapman, Nico Horner, Devin Williams. I can appreciate why you say that, because there's a non-zero chance that Bobby Witt's a 30-30 guy this year. Like, that's what he can do. Top prospect in baseball. We're a year removed from that.
I think it's almost a coin flip. He's a 30-30 guy.
Damn. So like, you're taking him over Matt Chapman on this list going into 2023?
I am. The reason Bobby Witt Jr. didn't, rank up there in WAR is the defense was dreadful. Right. And he was going back and forth between shortstop and third base. And it was really at the shortstop position where he really, really struggled. But I was watching an interview with him on MLB Network when they were dropping their top 100. And I just love this kid's mindset. And I agree with Arm. I think 30-30 is just inevitable at this point. I think we look back on this Bobby Witt Jr. season and be like, remember that rookie year where he still was 30-20? That was his worst year in Major League Baseball. I think we have a potential superstar in our hands with Bobby Witt Jr. I got to say, when I was ranking this list, I was almost afraid of ranking him too low. And he's already really high. Like, I think the sky's the limit for a guy like this. He has crazy power. He has maybe the best speed at his position, even above a guy like Trey Turner, who he ranked above in sprint speed. I think 30-30 is inevitable. I think the defense is going to improve. I think he's going to be a top 50 guy by year's end. That's why I think I almost ranked him too low. But at the same time, he showed it for 1 year. Do it again. That's why I have him there.
So I'm in the low to mid 60s right now.
Okay.
62 to 65. Zach Gallen, Dansby Swanson, Edwin Diaz, Willie Adames.
before Peter says anything.
One of those guys is not like the other. One of those guys
before Peter says a word. Before Peter says a word. This is why I was adamantly like, we're not doing a top 100 player list. It doesn't make sense. I'm not doing this. Like, if I could pick one span, it's that one right there. But I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. I don't know why other media outlets do it. Like this, like it just.
No,
okay,
you know why they do it? They do it because it's
great content. I mean, look at us right
yes.
now. We're having a ball and we're just talking baseball, but fuck, like that band right there is like actually why I refuse. But anyway, what's your
Zach
question?
Gallen, Dansby Swanson, Edwin Diaz, Willie Adames. Peter, your thoughts?
I mean, just saying my thoughts is like, I think that's where they should be ranked. Like, those are my thoughts.
Peel back the curtain. Peel back the curtain. What was the reasoning there? That had to be hard.
So the hardest part, like I said on this list, was there was a couple players who I thought were really hard to rank, but the hardest part on this list is ranking relievers because they don't rank up there in WAR. They don't rank in like they throw 50 innings. So it's really just wherever I want to put them. That's why it's the hardest thing. It's hard to convince you guys that Edwin Diaz is better than Willie Adames because Willie Adames can hit 30 home runs and play shortstop, and Edwin Diaz is a reliever. But that's the part where it's tough for me to really break it down. And if any pundit tries to, I think they're lying because I don't think there's any real way to prove to you that Edwin Diaz is better than Willie Adames, other than I think he's incredibly impactful for the Mets. If we look at the Mets team and they are without Edwin Diaz, we have a lot of more questions than I think we do if he's on the team. And I think his impact for a team is a little bit greater than Willie Adames' impact for the Brewers, even though you're going to look and see a higher WAR for Willie Adames because he plays every day and he plays shortstop. But I got to say, like, if I'm a contender, would you rather have Edwin Diaz in your bullpen or would you rather have Willie Adames at shortstop? I might say Edwin Diaz, and that's where I came to.
That's fair. Jack, do we want to go into the top 50 or do we tee up the Shane McClanahan?
I'm doing well here. I'd like to say I'm doing well here. I'm doing
you are
well.
Doing well. You are doing well.
I actually don't hate the Framber McClanahan stack there. I do think that Framber Valdez is a more reliable guy than McClanahan, but like obviously when we're talking floor ceiling, like Framber's floor is one of the best number twos in base. I think Framber's a one. Yeah.
I was saying Peter said that he put a lot of, again, like this is his list. So it's how he weights it. He put a lot of weight on postseason performance, like backs it up there with what Framber's done.
No, but I want to clarify that. I didn't put a lot into it. I said if there is a decision between two players that I really like that it's splitting hairs, I saw Framber look like maybe the best pitcher in the postseason. And I saw McClanahan make one start against the Guardians where he went 7 innings, 7 hits, 2 earned, 5 Ks.
Right.
So, and one more thing about those two guys, because these two, I maybe spent the most amount of time on deliberating because I think that McClanahan, when he's on and his stuff is on,
best lefty.
Say goodnight.
Yeah.
Say goodnight. But there's something about that man in Houston. There is something about that man. Like that curveball, first of all, has a higher whiff rate than any of McClanahan's pitches, or at least ones that he throws above 20% of the time, because Framber throws at 29%. I think the one pitch, maybe it was McClanahan slider. It's one of those pitches where it's 46, but he only throws it about 15% of the time. Maybe he might throw it more. I don't know. But it's like in a big game, Framber was the guy. And McClanahan, remember, post All-Star break, wasn't the kind of guy that he was in the first half.
Even before the injury, yeah.
Framber threw 200 innings last year, while McClanahan's high in innings is 166.
Correct.
So it's like over a full season, McClanahan might have a 2.5 ERA in 170 innings, but Framber might have a 2.8 in 200 innings. And I think Framber might win the Cy Young next year. Like I think he figured something out there. I think he's going to throw the curveball more this year because I think Framber Valdez's curveball is one of the best overall pitches in baseball. And I think he's going to throw it more than 29% because we saw with the sinker, opponents hit about 295 against it, which I don't even understand how, but they did. And maybe he lowers that usage, maybe throws the curveball more. We saw that in the playoffs where he routed off 15 swings and misses. Like they see something in that. It's one of the best pitches. So I just think, gun to my head, big game, give me Framber.
So I have no problem with the way he stacked it because like those are the two guys that I like. make time out of my day or night to watch. Like
Me too.
McClanahan is
Love
1, but Fromber 2, and then there's a big drop off, and then Cease is 3. But like that's 1, 2 in terms of like my favorite guys to watch. Where I have a problem before we get into the top 50 is 61, Fromber's teammate, Christian Javier, who just signed a $64 million extension. I feel like you're coming at me, putting Javier behind Tyler Glasnow, who's coming off of Tommy John surgery. I don't feel good about Javier at 61. I think Christian Javier is a top 50 player in baseball. I do believe that. And I think that you might be sticking to your guns about you got to see more from Javier. What's going on here?
I just want to know your opinion on those two pitchers first too, before I kind of break into mine.
Yeah. So it's funny because like on the surface, that one didn't really jump out to me. And then we recently talked about Glasnow, and honestly, like I underestimated how unavailable Tyler Glasnow has been. I know he was recovering from Tommy John surgery, but I didn't realize like this guy has made 67 starts since 2016. Yeah. We know how good he can be, when he's on the mound, but like I don't know if we've never really seen him stretched out beyond 111 and 2/3 innings in his entire career. So I don't hate the range of where he is, and I think Glasnow might be the top 5 hardest guy to rank on this list.
Yep.
So I wouldn't call I'm going to remove Glasnow for a second here and almost cast him aside. The only guy that, I'm looking in that band ahead of him that I would say like, I'll put him ahead is Buxton, who's also probably a top 5 hardest guy to rank here. But yeah, I would just say like with what we saw from Javier through the season, in the postseason, and building up that workload and now signing that extension, I like him better than Glasnow, but at the same time, like I can see why you would bet on the upside because Glasnow, anytime he's on the field, is a Cy Young candidate. But I'm going to go, I think just Javier's way safer, kind of like you were talking about with Jazz versus Bader. Like in a way, I feel like this is kind of a similar comparison. Obviously it's apples to oranges, but I would say like, I like that the floor of Javier and his ceiling is still pretty damn high.
6'8", 225 pounds, 98 with ride and the hammer. When I watch Tyler Glasnow, I see one of the best, most talented pitchers in Major League Baseball, like way higher in terms of talent. Kind of like Jazz in that way, where the flash of the talent is just otherworldly. But I think Tyler Glasnow, at least on a pitching side, is more talented than Jazz is at the plate and in the field. I saw also Christian Javier dominant in the playoffs. Glasnow, when he was on the mound in the playoffs, dominant. Like, there's flashes of Glasnow where it's an ERA in the 1s. Like in a couple of seasons, very limited sample. There's ERAs in the 1s there. Like Javier, I have fully gone from I don't believe he's going to be a swingman to I freaking love the guy. Like I've admitted that, wrong take, but it had nothing to do with this ranking. What I saw from Christian Javier, I believe in, but I just look at a guy like Glasnow. And again, it's so close because, again, we're talking about Glasnow's inability to stay on the field when Javier's done it also once. Like also one season of 130 innings. I'm not saying that he won't do it again, but I think if healthy, Glasnow will be almost clearly the better pitcher, I would say, over a full season. That's my opinion. I think clearly. But the reason they are so close is because Glasnow's inability to stay on the field. But at the same time, I have to look at a Javier thinking, all right, he did 130 innings because Arms Point 111 innings is kind of the most we've seen from Glasnow. That was one time where Javier did that. Let's see him get pushed out, right? That's all I'm saying. Let's see him get pushed out. Could look back on it and be like, yeah, he threw 190 innings, had a 2.80 ERA, established himself as one of the best pitchers in baseball. Could easily do that. But if Glasnow stays healthy, could win a Cy Young.
So what's crazy is that Tyler Glasnow in his career, since he debuted in 2016, the year I graduated high school, he has thrown 409 and 2/3 innings since 2016.
Yeah.
For reference, Christian Javier already has 304 innings under his belt since 2020. That's crazy.
Yeah. That is crazy.
That wasn't even to push back on a point. That just like, as we were having this conversation, fleshing this out, like that's nuts. Again, I would say Glasnow is in the boat of this is the last year I'm giving him until I fully label him never, like rarely available. You know, like
Agreed.
we're saying with Rendon, like you can already kind of put that label on to a degree with Rendon. You can kind of put that label on Glasnow, but I wouldn't, I wouldn't stamp it yet. If he's banged up this year, I'm stamping it. And if you were ranking him above, some of these guys in next year's list and he only threw 80 innings this year again, I'd call you crazy. But I'm giving you one more benefit of the doubt year on Glasnow because of the talent.
Who do you guys think is a more talented pitcher? I'm just curious because you guys could disagree with me. I'm curious.
I agree with the talented, conversation there. Honestly, I don't know if there's anybody that's more talented in terms of size, athleticism, stuff. I'm with you on that. Maybe DeGrom like that.
No,
like
I mean, like God-given ability.
I've seen both of them plenty now, and both of them crush my dreams every single time they pitch. Christian Javier is the Yankees' daddy. But when I watch Tyler Glasnow, what I see is possibly one of the most talented pitchers I've seen in the last half decade.
Well,
so it's a balance of what have you done for me on paper versus what do I see, and the pitch stuff. Like you look at whiff rates, you look at all this kind of stuff.
What you see is 6'8", 225, right? It's not spin. Like you're not counting the spins that happen. They're talented in different ways. Glasnow's God-given ability far surpasses Christian Javier. Like it's nowhere close. I would laugh you out of the room if you said that Javier was as gifted as Tyler Glasnow.
I mean, I'm looking at spin too. We got 2,500 RPMs on the fastball at 98.
I know, but what I'm saying is, it's not eye test that I'm asking you about right now, and it's not even talent that I'm asking you about right now. I think that Christian Javier is a better pitcher than Tyler Glasnow in 2020.
Yeah, there you go. That's what you think, and I think Tyler Glasnow, pitch for pitch. Give me him.
Okay. Aram, what do you see in the top 50?
So there's one guy I want to get to, but I'm trying to make sure I can like hold off until then. Just like not even something that I don't even need like a reply from on Peter that I just wanted to like just talk about in terms of just fun conversation points. Wander Franco must have been miserable to rank. That sucks. Another reason why I was like out on doing this. Wander Franco, like, could be 20 by the end, top 20 by the end of the year, could be out of the list, depending on his health. But that's just one I know, Peter, you would echo the same thing in terms of the ranking there. Aaron Nola, he just seems like a fun one. I like this range right here. I don't even know what my question is yet, but I know we'll get to a question. This stack is really funny in one lens because it involves two Yankees and it's Peter. The second lens is because it's just a really crazy group. We'll go from 37 to, I'll say 43. Carlos Rodon, Garrett Cole, Michael Harris, Julio Urias, Max Fried, Aaron Nola, Bo Bichette. Again, just laughing because of how
an incredible ranking. An incredible ranking. Props to me. What a list.
So for Garrett Cole at 38 is kind of nuts. Like, I know he's Garrett Cole and the good with the bad, but like Garrett Cole is still 200 innings, lead the league in strikeouts. Like he was phenomenal in the postseason this year too. Why Garrett Cole below, some of these
Rodon.
other guys? Yeah, like Rodon, Adley, Cease I can get because of the stuff and what he's already starting to show. But
no, I mean, like as simple as it is, like opening day starter for the Yankees is going to be Garrett Cole. Why is Cole below Rodon?
Yeah, he's one spot below Rodon. Objectively,
but he's below Rodon.
No, I know. I would start Rodon opening day. I'm not the GM of the Yankees. I'm not the manager of the Yankees, but Garrett Cole is the $300+ million pitcher, and Rodon isn't. But I think on a pitch by pitch basis, I think Rodon is the more dominant pitcher, and he showed it last year. He was objectively much better. By the numbers, by WAR, Rodon, you could argue, was the best pitcher in baseball last year, or at least in the top 3. That matters to me. I watch Rodon and I say to myself, there's few pitchers in baseball that I'd rather have on the mound in a big game than Carlos Rodon. But the same thing is with Cole. Like, he's had worse numbers over the past 2 seasons, but Garrett Cole still gives you that length, which I still value. But at the same time, Garrett Cole at a 3.5 ERA. Now, the underlying metrics would point to positive regression because of the amount of home runs that he gave up. But the fact of the matter is, I watch Garrett Cole, and he leaves a lot of fastballs middle. And when you connect to those fastballs, they go far. And that's always kind of been his issue, is the home run ball. That hurts in the playoffs. It's hurt him before. Now, I really want to see Rodon in these big-time moments in Yankee Stadium to see how he responds. But I don't think it's an argument over the past 2 seasons who's been the better pitcher, and that is Carlos Rodon. But I put them right next to each other because I wanted to make a point of who I would start opening day and who I think big game I'd rather have, and that's Carlos Rodon.
Fair. Vladdy, like first, how did you?
Wait, can we respond to that? Because Jack, you called me out for that one. Do you like Cole more than Rodon? Or do you like Cole more than Rodon?
I think Cole has established principle a lot more than Rodon has.
So you would take you would
I think
like if you were ranking pitchers, because we're going to come out with ours.
Yeah,
you didn't rank Cole above Rodon when we were talking about it.
No, but I was outnumbered. I believe that Rodon has done it once truly. I don't think he's done it more than once. I think that 2022 was the first time that Carlos Rodon put together a full season of dominance. Obviously, 2021 looked like dominance, and then all of a sudden he just sputtered and he didn't even get to the finish line. 2022, he signed a 2-year deal and he proved it, and now he's a big money guy. Garrett Cole, after signing a $300+ million deal as a starting pitcher, all he does is walk backwards into 200 innings and near 300 strikeouts. Like, that's why I go with Cole over Rodon.
But I think both of us would say, too, that since the sticky stuff, he has not been the same pitcher. He just simply has not. And like Rodon and Javier, for example, if you're not giving 2021 credit to Rodon for 2021, in how many innings did he throw in 2021? He threw 132. That's what Javier did. Like if that's not a level of success in 130 innings, then we're picking and choosing. We're picking and choosing.
Are you saying I'm picking and choosing? Because I think you're picking and choosing at some points in this list as well.
I think you're picking and choosing right now.
Okay.
I think the top 100 players is demands picking and choosing. But I will say it was the way that he finished is what rubbed you the wrong way in 2021, Jack. Is that what you were getting at?
Yeah.
Fair. I mean, I think the way that he finished rubbed a lot of teams the wrong way because nobody was really willing to give him a long-term deal. And
he signed a 2-year, $44 million deal with a vesting option.
With the vesting option that can get him out of it, which is interesting. And
but
so
that was also about his 2020, 2019, where he was banged up too. And then he threw 130 innings and then had that little bit of a slow end to the year. And then it was like, well, he didn't finish strong and he doesn't have that track record, but then he did it in more last year.
I'm also interested to see, like, Rodon was doing that. Like, this is a guy that likes to throw high fastballs. He was doing that in one of the better pitchers' parks. Like, what would Garrett Cole's numbers look like in San Francisco? What are Rodon's numbers going to look like in New York? I think that's an interesting wrinkle in it too. Ultimately, like Cole, this is another ceiling floor thing. If both are pitching at their peak, I think at this stage of Cole's career and what we've seen from Rodon's peak last year, I think Rodon would be the more valuable pitcher. Like, he'd be the nastier pitcher overall. But I do think there's something to be said about the fact that you can pretty much at worst pencil in Garrett Cole for what he did last year, which is pretty damn good. And then also the postseason performance was pretty remarkable. I don't have an issue with that ranking. I honestly don't have an issue either way. I am interested to see how Rodon throws in Yankee Stadium, though, and I think it's going to be interesting to see. But I don't have much of an issue with the 37 versus 38 there. Honestly, my big question is how you valued positions in this case, because you got Pete Alonso and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., right? Two of the best hitters in baseball, period. And I think Vladdy's going to go off this year. So I like that you didn't, drop him too much for his quote unquote, like that, not Vladdy performance last year, even though he was still very, very good. How do you rank a Vlad Guerrero Jr. and ahead of still a Rodon and Cole, who were, two of the better pitchers in baseball last year, or even a Arias or Fried, who were, Cy Young candidates as well?
Yeah, like how do I rank like a Pete Alonso and Vladdy versus
a first
pitcher
baseman
like that? Yeah, that was also a really tough thing to gauge on this. But what I looked at was just straight up impact of a player. And when I looked at Pete Alonso, like he was the one player, I'm going through these lists, going through everyone's stats. Like I think Pete Alonso was like we all appreciate Pete Alonso for what he is and one of the best power hitters in baseball, but I don't think we truly like know what he's been doing lately, like as a straight
Complete
up
hitter.
like run producer at his core. Like we saw what he can do in his rookie year where he broke Aaron Judge's record for home runs in a single season by a rookie. And then last year he had 40 bombs and 131 RBIs with an 870 OPS.
He may be the best run producer in baseball.
And he doesn't strike out at all. And he walks, and his defense got better. Like, I almost think Pete Alonso at this point might be the most underrated player in baseball, because I think we just mail it in. All right, you're 40 and 120, like whatever. But like 40 and 120. He has 146 home runs in 4 seasons, and one of those is 2020, where he had 16 and 57 games. He is like, he hasn't really had, he's gone through the up and down that kind of Vladdy did, right? In the 2021, I guess that was his down year, because it was like his second real full season if you exclude 2021, or excuse me, if you exclude 2020. And like his second year was better than Vladdy's second year. And then you look at what he came back from, 40 and 131. It's just, and the improvements on defense. Well, Vladdy has made them too, and they're so close, because I think Vladdy has more potential. But again, razor thin. I'm just like, I almost can absolutely count on 40 and 130. While Vladdy, I'm either going to get 50 and 140, or I could get 30 and 110. Because the ground balls were a problem last year. Like, there were specific pitches where he would just crush some, and then they made their adjustments, and then he struggled a little bit. He's still a freak of nature. I could look back at the end and say, well, of course Vladdy was better. Look at the year he just put up. But in terms of just, I feel like what I can count on at this point, Pete Alonso, like if we're talking about prospect pedigree, Vladdy had it, but Pete Alonso was a freak of nature at Florida, and then came into the scene and was immediately hitting 50 home runs. Like, he is also a freak. I think he's slightly safer. That's what narrowly did the edge, and the slight edge on defense too. It just had me put one above the other. But again, you can make the arguments. But again, this list is flawless, so I stand by Pete Alonso over Vladdy.
No, I agree with Alonso over Vladdy. Like,
yeah, I agree with it too. No, I have no problem with that.
I mean, it's just Alonso. I'm with you. He's becoming one of the more underrated guys in baseball. No question here. I love the double bird that you just gave to Red Sox fans by having Devers 28 and Bogarts 29.
Yeah, I mean, there's some art to these lists.
There's some art, some nuance.
But at the same time, I believe it. I would rather have Rafael Devers than Xander Bogaerts. It's razor thin.
I don't think it's a debate, and you just look at the money that they got, right? Like, I think that Devers clears Bogarts big time.
Yeah. Arm, what do you think? Devers, Bogarts?
I like Devers more in terms of just like the offensive output. You know, I know both made strides defensively too. So it's like, it's not like only Bogarts improved defensively. I thought it was a funny stack though, for sure. I would way rather, and I think Devers is going to keep getting better offensively. Like, I think we're going to see an even better year from him next year. Whereas Bogarts, like, you know, he's going to be good for a long time. But I don't know if it's going to get much better than it's been the last few years. And
you're going to be good for 11 years.
Honestly, like, I think he's going to hit kind of forever.
I agree. I think he's going to hit forever.
They're going to throw that man the DH role, and his swing is just so perfect. Like, I you know, I'm not a huge fan of his, but I was listening to Marcus Stroman, Not on Purpose. It was like one of those where like the TikTok clip comes on your feed, and I guess that's how a lot of people have to stick with our faces on there too. Yeah. But you know, it was him talking about like the toughest guy to pitch to, and he's just saying how Bogarts' swing is in the zone for so long, and he has such easy plate coverage that like there's nothing you execute your pitches perfectly, and he spoils them, or he drives them the other way, or he turns around on something inside, and you just feel like there's no way to get him. That guy's going to age like fine wine. But Devers' peak, I think, like, we might not have even seen it yet, and he's a lead the league in doubles and hit nukes kind of guy that now isn't a gaping hole at third. I like Devers above him. But I actually found something that I'm ready to really pick at here, and I think it's going to be a fun one, because
finally,
we talked about guys that are maybe starting to get taken for granted a little bit. I think Austin Riley is getting taken for granted a little bit. And look, I'm not saying you ranked him well. You ranked him high. You ranked him at 26. Yeah, I'm going to split the hairs. I'm going to split the hairs of who he's behind.
Yes.
Kyle Tucker, Corey Seager. And I love both of those guys, but we're in the top 30. Like we got to split hairs here.
I want to
make that clear.
Let's split the shit out of some hairs. Let's split them.
I love Corey Seager. And, since we've started this podcast, Kyle Tucker has been one of my favorite guys to talk about. And we've all been in agreement on how good he is. Didn't quite do what we were hoping last year, though. And I think that's worth noting. He still was great, but didn't quite do what we were hoping. Last 2 years from Austin Riley, and a big reason why he just got freaking paid, 10 years, $212 million, 33 home runs, a 136 WRC plus as a 24-year-old in 2021. Then he follows that up with last year's performance in 2022, where he puts up a 142 WRC plus, hits 38 homers, 4.7 F4 in 2021, 5.5 F4 in 2022, and he got better as the season went on. This guy's defense has continued to improve. I want to see him walk a little bit more, but we'll have to see how he develops in that department. Didn't walk slightly more this year, but if you look at the F4 department, if you look at what this guy's done as a 24, 25-year-old, he's not even 26 yet. He's going to be 26 by the time the season starts. I'd almost argue that he's better than Kyle Tucker at this point. What he did last year is better than anything we've seen from Kyle Tucker. And what he did last year was actually by F4 better than anything we've seen from Corey Seager. So I think that's kind of interesting, but kind of want your thoughts on why Tucker and I would say more so Tucker and Seager are ahead of Austin Riley.
Well, what I will say is with Seager is that Riley, 4.7 F4 last year?
4.7 in 2021, 5.5 last year.
Okay, so in 2017, Seager did have the 5.4, and then in 2016, 5.1, but he's years removed from that, right? He's been banged up with some injuries, and he signed a huge deal. And I guess here's what I will say is, and what I was thinking about when I was ranked, because they're all ranked so close, and I'm higher on Corey Seager than I think anybody who makes list is. I think he's higher.
I also love the Seager Correa narrative here, where you've got them stacked and Seager one spot ahead of Correa, and like had to do it. That's the Peter. That's Peter's thing, and that's why it's a perfect list for Peter.
Yes. So with Seager, 4.5 WAR in a perceived down year, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
The banning of the shift. We talked about that, how he, and by the numbers, is one of the players who should benefit from banning the shift the most. I think that Corey Seager, from a talent perspective, has one of the best bats in Major League Baseball. In a down year, he had 33 home runs at the shortstop position compared to Austin Riley with 38 home runs. What I see with Austin Riley is, if we're comparing Seager and Kyle Tucker, I think from a pure impact of the bat in terms of power, Austin Riley might have the most impactful bat in terms of hitting for power, combining that with average. But what I look at Kyle Tucker is that he could be 30 home runs, but also give you 25 stolen bases. What I also see in Kyle Tucker is the transition over to center, just the athletic ability of Kyle Tucker, that I think he can do more things on a baseball field than Austin Riley can, while you look at Austin Riley as just a punch in the mouth, incredible third baseman who is a fine defender. Even by last year's standards, he might even rate below average at the position. But in terms of a bat, it's hard to find better than Austin Riley. But in terms of a power production, Seager in a perceived down year had 33 home runs. If he could be 35 home runs, improve the defense, settle into Texas, I think he's a 6.5 win player, when I think that might have been Riley's best year. So that's kind of where I'm at on those two. I think Seager could go crazy this year. I think he could win the MVP this year.
So you think he's going to be better than he's ever been now?
I think so. I think he could settle in and be better than he's ever been.
After a year in which, I know he hit the homers, but like, again, a lot of that was pull side, like benefiting from the park he plays, in which he can continue to do. But this guy got on base at a 317 clip. 317, by far the worst clip of his career.
And it was a down year.
Correct. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying, like, if he doesn't hit those home runs, like if he's not running, because you can regress in those ways too, right? Like,
yeah,
if he doesn't hit 33 home runs, it's a really bad year in a lot of ways. Like, we're talking about let's say he hits 26, 27 home runs, which, by the way, if he was playing in Comerica Park, he would have hit 15 home runs last year. Let's say that, he hits 25 home runs, so 8 less, which is more than still his career average year after year after year. He has a 740 OPS. And we're saying, what the fuck's wrong with Corey Seager? So like, I think he's a handful of home runs away from having a year where we're like, what happened? The big gain in F4 was the defensive improvements, which, that's great. That's great and all. But, Austin Riley's a guy that is continuously adding here, like 33, now 38, had one of the best second halves we've seen in a while, right up there with Bryce Harper in a lot of departments.
Crazy second half. Unbelievable.
Right. Like, how stunned are you if Austin Riley's at 1,000 OPS guy next year? Like, he's one of the best pure hitters in baseball. You know what I mean?
I think I would be a little bit surprised if he gets even better. I think I would be a little bit surprised. While with Corey Seager, I would not be surprised. And I think that's crazy. And also when I was
feels like picking and choosing. You know what this feels like?
This is my evaluation of who I think is better.
This feels like picking and choosing.
But how? Explain to me how it's picking and choosing.
Because he had a 772 OPS last season, took a step back in the on-base department. The only thing that improved was the home run output by going into a very hitter-friendly ballpark. Did not really improve in any, bat to ball approach, chase rates. Like 317 on base is bad, man. Like that's just not good. And especially for a guy that hits 30. So how is he going to go from that to MVP candidate? I can make a much more sound case of Austin Riley going from 33 home runs to 38 home runs to one of the best second halves of the entire league, and at 26 years old now, hitting a peak MVP candidate kind of season. I don't know if I can justify Corey Seager taking a huge step back in OPS, taking a huge step back in his batting average. Even if they ban the shift, sure, okay, now he's a 260 hitter. He had 245 last year. It was all home run dependent and improved defense, which that's not winning you an MVP, I don't think. Like, this guy just didn't look that good to me last year overall. Like, it was a decent season. I don't know why we could expect him to be better than he's ever been in his career. I think that's more of a stretch than the 25-year-old continuing his upward trajectory of success on a really good team after he just got signed to a $200 million deal pre-arb. So, like, I just think I think it's easier to see Austin Riley do this than Corey Seager do this off of a 772 OPS.
Here's what I was looking at too. And yeah, I agree with you. You make a lot of really good points too. And that's why it's 26-22. But what I was looking at it too is the shortstop who made improvements on defense too versus the third baseman who is slightly below average defensively. And what I saw from Austin Riley is I don't know if he's going to get better than that. I think he can still put up this similar season, but I see a lot more from Corey Seager. I just do. I think the banning of the shift is going to help him. I think the power is going to stay there. And there have been seasons where he didn't have a 317 OBP. There were seasons there where the OBP was 394, like it was in 2021, where the guy hit 306. And in 2020, like he put up back-to-back seasons of a 146 WRC plus, then a 149 WRC plus. And I saw a down year offensively from him, even though the power was there in Texas. So if the power can stay there, if he can walk again, which I think he will because it was his real first season after a huge contract, and he had a better second half too. And I think if he just is now settled in Texas with the defensive improvements at a more premium position at shortstop, and we act like Corey Seager's 33 when he's 28, also, this could be the best season of his big league career now that he's settled in an easy ballpark to hit with those defensive adjustments. He's also got the body. I mean, both have a crazy body. They're all amazing. But I'm saying the slight edge to me was the shortstop who made improvements on defense, where I see the bat has been as good as Riley in terms of a WRC plus department. And I think of a bet on WAR, I think Seager wins that this year. And I'm willing to bet that with either of you of a higher WAR this year.
Like,
I'm not doing that wager.
I just don't understand why we would just see him magically gain like a 2 wins here or a win and a half in terms of value when, I just don't know where he's going to gain that back. He already made the gain defensively. He already put up by far the most home runs of his career. Like if he walks more, sure, but his walk rate last year wasn't that far off from his career average. It was about maybe 0.5% off from his career average. I don't know how, when we look at Austin Riley, 4.7 F4, 5.5 F4, that, you look at somebody like Corey Seager putting up his first 4-win season in a while, magically then jumping up 2 more wins from there. That's
now, in defensive Peter.
Oh, yeah.
Defensive.
No. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Peter's like, defensive me.
Yeah, hold on. Defensive
Go
Peter, I'm in. Yeah, let's go. In defensive Peter, Seager has been a really good player for a lot longer than Austin Riley has.
That's fair. That's fair.
And 242 BABIP for Seager last year compared to his norm at like 330. At least that was what he was in 2021. Like the guy in 2020 at 307, then he hit 306. He's getting on base at a 350 clip on average, 394 again in 2021. Like I was thinking if he could be a 130 to 140 WRC plus guy with those improved defense, I think that's a 6-WAR player. And I just don't know if I see 6 wins for Austin Riley. And I am a Corey Seager believer, as you guys know. Like the World Series MVP's been there. He's done it longer than Riley. I love Riley. I ranked him 26. He's fucking awesome. But I just took the shortstop over him. I mean, we could even argue Correa in that same conversation with Riley too. It's a tough one. They're all some of the best players in baseball, but I have a real belief that Seager is a 6-win player if he gets back to that 135 WRC plus, which would even be less than it was in 2021 with the Dodgers with this improved defense. I think he could be in the MVP discussion this year. I really do.
I want to save a lot of the top 20 debate for the live stuff that you're going to be doing on the heels of this. You're going to be doing a YouTube live. You're going to be doing a TikTok live about this. And, you know, it's going to be a conversation with, I think, you're almost like crowdsourcing thoughts on the top 20. So again, go to justbaseball.com and see this. I've got 2 more things before I send you into the weekend with this list. Trey Turner, 19, Yordan Alvarez, 20. I'm not saying that like Yordan's better than Trey Turner. Like that is where it jumps out. Like this is a really, really hard list to put together because Yordan is clearly a better hitter, like clearly.
Yeah.
But Trey Turner, like obviously he's making up for it in base running and defense. Do you think enough? Like, do you think the gap between Yordan offensively and Trey Turner offensively is smaller than the gap between Turner in terms of defense and base running?
Yeah, it's just you got Trey Turner who does more things on a baseball field than Yordan does, but from a pure hitting standpoint,
it's not close.
Yordan had the same zone contact as Jeff McNeil. He is
like
heading
it's not anywhere close. Yordan is, if we were just going hitters, like that's all.
I mean, Jordan's top
in the batter's box. Yordan is top 3.
Yeah, something like that. Crazy. I agree. But it's just the DH fringe left fielder versus the shortstop who can steal 30 bags. Now, will Trey Turner steal 30 bags? I don't think so. That's why I dropped him to 19. And on most lists, I remember you guys saying like he could be a top 5 player in baseball. That's why I disagreed. I think he's 19 where I put him. But I still think he is incredibly talented this year. I just think it's like Yordan has to hit at incredible levels again to be better than Trey Turner. And he could, but what's the safer bet in terms of WAR? It's probably the guy that does so many things at so many different spots and plays shortstop. So that's where I slightly lean Turner. But again, Yordan, like he's, again, one of the other toughest guys because he's a top 3 hitter.
He's a DH.
But he's a DH. So it's like, but damn, I wanted to rank him higher. I really did. But I just couldn't stomach it for the way I ranked it, where I believe in the position and that mattering a little bit more. Trey Turner's done it for longer. He's like second in WAR if you look at like from 2017, 2018. Like he's that type of player. Like he is just incredible. But then I was like looking at Altuve. I'm like, Altuve's also been doing that. Altuve's been out here. He's been out here just hitting.
Been here for a minute.
And like Altuve was 4th in WRC plus last year. Like if we're talking about how good of a hitter Yordan is, Altuve was like almost as good. Like Altuve, again, he was one of the players kind of like Pete Alonso, where I looked at the stats and I've been looking through. I'm like, oh my dear Lord, Altuve's been amazing forever now. And he's like one of the postseason leaders in home runs or something like that. Games hits, something like that. He's an incredible ball player. Incredible.
It's another one that, you know, I wouldn't say we take for granted because people just don't like him. So like we just kind of ignore his greatness. But
yeah, I don't even like him. But you have to respect the hell out of him.
You have to respect
the hell out of Jose Altuve because you can talk about the buzzers, but shut up, look at the stats, watch him play. He's incredible.
They never found the buzzer. Let's get that out of the way. They never found a buzzer.
And even if they did, like he just did it again this year. Like he's done it.
It is arguably best year offensively this year. He's incredible.
And he went back to stealing bags, like stole 18. So like he's done that. So my question though is in regards to Trey Turner though, because we kind of alluded to this in the previous episode. I really do think Trey Turner is a top at least a top 10 player in this game. You look at like F4 since the 2019 season, he's pretty much there with anybody. You look at the speed, you look at the power that he's added, you look at the solid defense he plays at a really important position at shortstop, and a guy that's still 29 years old. Like what does, and also 6.8 F4, 6.3 F4 the last 2 seasons. Yeah. What is Trey Turner, like what was he maybe, and again, this is splitting hairs, so what was he quote unquote missing to be outside of, the top 15 with some of these other guys?
Yeah, he wasn't really missing anything. Like he wasn't missing anything. It was just like Lindor is higher than him. And I think Lindor is a more complete shortstop than him.
That's fair.
And when I was going through, it's like, well, Goldschmidt just won the MVP. So he's probably higher than him and deserved to win MVP. Yeah. Corbin Burnes, I think, is arguably the best pitcher in baseball, so he had to be slightly ahead of him. Altuve, what he did offensively, like I thought he had to be slightly ahead of him. And it's funny, I was talking to Dodger fans too. Like some of my Dodger friends like don't like him, and I had to go back at them, and they were like, "You should rank Trey Turner like 35," and I'm like, "Stop."
No, that's
because it was just like, I guess what they were saying and what they were watching every day, because like we watch plenty of Dodgers games, but they watch 162, and they were like, he's an overrated base runner is what they were saying. Like he is not the base runner that like we think that he is based on what they saw. And this was coming from like multiple of them. And I'm like, guys, are you sure? Like, look at him. And they're like, I know, but he's not like the best in baseball like people say he is. He's not the 40 stolen base guy that people say he is. So I really looked at it and I was like, yeah, 27 bags, 21 home runs. He plays an average defense at shortstop. He is one of the best players in Major League Baseball. But when I really went down to it, like Lindor was better last year in terms of a WAR.
No,
like
I think Lindor is the best shortstop.
So that's where I came to 19, but I agree with you. It's like they're all in there, but 19 is perfect.
13.1 F4 in the last 2 seasons.
Incredible.
It's pretty nuts.
But also 2021 playoffs, he stunk.
Yeah, fair. Sidebar, last thing I'll say on Trey Turner, like if this guy keeps it up for 4 or 5 more years, he might have a Cooperstown case.
He might.
Which is pretty absurd. That has nothing to do with the rankings here.
And like, also, if you guys want to keep doing top 20, I could be here all day. We'll do I'll keep doing lives, and people love so many questions anyway. So fire anything at me that you want to, Jack.
I've got one more, and
fine.
Again, go. So where's your problem? Is your problem with me? Is it with Aram and I?
I have 0 problems. I am in love with what's happening right now.
Okay, good.
I love this.
No,
I'm just the host, so I automatically looked at you.
I get it. Go check it out. He's got 3 third basemen in a row, 11 through 13. I want to walk 8 through 11. Sandy, Tatis, DeGrom, Machado.
Oh,
that's fucking impossible.
It's impossible, but it's perfect. No, so Sandy, I think, is the best pitcher in baseball. I do.
Yeah.
For what the length that he gives, the stuff that he has. The confidence I have him in the projectable body. I mean, projectable. Sandy would just want a unanimous Cy Young. But he's just such a horse. And I just think I was looking forward, and we were talking about our top 30 starting pitchers. If I have one guy to give me a full season of work, like I would challenge the listener, because if the listener is shouting at the top of their lungs, you have Sandy over DeGrom, you idiot. Ask yourself, 150 innings, you going over or under if I have a gun to your head? You're probably going under.
With what just happened yesterday, under.
Exactly. So like, and if I put a gun in your head and said over under 200 for Sandy,
I'm taking the over.
I'm taking the over. And like a 2.5 ERA, like even if he has a step back, he's not the unanimous Cy Young. Finishes second. What? Like he is going to be, and I think that is so impactful. Like I almost wish I ranked him higher, but in the top 7 hitters, I was like, shit. They're all like, dude,
amazing. I love Sandy. Like watching this guy blossom from a guy that got sent back down to the minors to come up and be as dominant as he is. I think it's pretty hard to rank Sandy any higher. I will tell you though, the Marlins faithful will hate the fact that you put Ronald Acuna ahead of Sandy.
Oh, yeah.
Hate.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I'm
Good.
gonna get backlash, even though it's Peter Apple's list. I guarantee some of my
Don't come
fish
after
friends-
Aram, people. Marlins
Yeah.
fans, my DMs are open at Peter Apple 23. Send me
Oh,
your hateful numbers.
They hate Ronald Acuna, man. Like,
So
they
there's-
hate him.
There's two players who I think might be the most talented players outside of Shohei because he's a freak and he's obviously number one.
Mookie and Ronald Acuna.
Well, Mookie, in terms of like an all-around player, that's like Lindor. I put them kind of in the same boat where just like
No.
they're just perfect people and perfect players. But in a sheer
Tatis and
talent
Acuna.
perspective, it's Tatis and Acuna.
Yeah.
And these two guys, when they are on the field and healthy, it's historic. And I don't say that lightly. Historic. Fernando Tatis Jr., what he was doing until he went down, historic. Ron Acuna Jr. in a full season could be a 45 home run, 40 steal guy while hitting 280 while having the best arm in right field and winning a Gold Glove.
Yeah.
That's what we could see. He's coming off a torn ACL where the ground balls were so common. I think he gets back in that back hip and starts lifting balls again. The max exit velo is still there. Everything is still there. He's going to go nuclear, might win the MVP.
The only thing I'd say, so if this was a prospect list, Acuna's 30 grade makeup would dock him a couple marks there.
Ouch.
But,
Spoken like a Marlins fan.
Yeah.
or
I thought-
a Venezuelan league fan, or spoken like Alex Gonzalez, or essentially any person that's interacted with him.
You know what I thought you guys
Like
were going to
Freddie
be the
Freeman.
most, man, maybe you guys aren't.
Rent-free,
I thought you
is that
guys
what
were
you
gonna,
said?
Freddie Freeman.
hold on.
Oh.
I thought you guys were going to be the most upset that Lindor is that high.
No,
that's a
I'm
good spot.
totally in.
Love it.
I'm,
Love it.
I'm totally in.
I was
on that.
ready to just go at anyone who didn't think that Lindor is the best shortstop in baseball. Tatis is technically ranked higher. I don't know what he is. Don't care. He's going to hit like A-Rod. So
Yeah, he's literally A-Rod.
and he's
in,
gonna
in every way.
Well,
like
see what-
literally. Yeah,
We'll see
every
what happens
way.
without the bacterial infection cream to fight hair loss.
Not worried about it.
Not worried
Yeah,
about
me
it one
neither.
bit. He's going to hit 45 home runs.
yeah,
like in
maybe they'll go-
120 games.
Maybe they'll go 460 feet instead of 475 when he really gets a hold of one. Like, oh, okay. But honestly, for Tatis is can he stay healthy? And I think that's why he started to, allegedly do whatever he allegedly did for his ringworm. I think that was because of the frustration of continuously getting hurt. And continuously getting ringworm. So, I'm curious to see if he can stay on the field. But his upside is so high. His upside is, best player in baseball essentially at this point, besides Shohei Ohtani. Even, right up there with Mike Trout in terms of offensive production. So, I got no qualms there, and that's
Good.
it for me. I'm good. I'm ready to go. I'm going to circle back on Jazz in a few months, and that'll be fun. And I'm going to circle back on Corey Seager, who I freaking like now, which sucks. I got to pretend I don't like Corey. He's a phenomenal baseball player.
Yeah.
But those are my two, and I'm glad we had the conversation. It was really fun.
I'm going to circle back on Darvish.
Peter did a
and
great
Musgrove.
job. Peter did a great job. He was ready and on his toes, and I thought he did a really good job.
100%.
You
I
guys
agree.
think Otani should be number one? He's pretty good.
No,
No, Ohtani should be like
Fuck that
7
up.
or 8.
you botched that shit.
Yeah,
That was the
so
easiest rank I've ever had on a list.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
But I did
think
get some
3 is-
backlash. Trout versus Judge.
Ooh.
No, it's Trout.
Yeah. How about the guy that?
Trout.
Yeah.
It's Mike Trout.
Mike
That's
Trout.
my answer. It's Mike Trout.
Yeah, it's Mike Trout.
All right, Peter, take us out.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Of course, it's available on justbaseball.com for the full list. So many podcasts coming out, and I put them all in the link tree. So if you're on social media, you can just click the link tree and find who's better baseball. Just came off a debate with our guy Ryan, who's the managing editor at justbaseball.com. We debated the NL West versus the NL East. That's a great podcast. So excited for that one. It's just getting started. Make sure to go listen to it. It's like 30 to 35-minute episodes on just talking about who's better, kind of similar to what we did here. Just Fantasy Baseball Show is pumping out content like nobody's business. And the rankings, you can find those on justbaseball.com. Not gambling advice. That's obviously live. We're going to be doing so many picks there. I highly recommend downloading Prize Picks, using that deposit match to your advantage by using the code JustBaseball when you download, because we will be doing so many season-long props on Prize Picks, as well as props daily on that app too, and you can get some free money. So why not use that code? It's in the episode description. The Call Up podcast, Jack and Arm continue to kill it. I was just listening to 2018 redraft. I'm freaking smiling from ear to ear because it was so freaking entertaining. Just got off also listening to the D Gordon interview on the Show and Go
That one
podcast.
was so funny.
So
Talk about
funny.
entertaining. That
Talk
shit was
about
hilarious.
entertaining. Awesome interview with Jack. And of course, our guy Taylor Davis. So much stuff happening at justbaseball.com. And the best way to support us is to get some merch in the episode description. We got hats, we got tees. I'm out here rocking the long sleeve, freaking comfortable. sweatshirts, the whole nine. But if you don't want to spend a dime, we understand. If you could rate us 5 stars on Apple or Spotify, or leave us a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, that's greatly appreciated. We love all the people that support. I think that's it.
That's it.
Let's get a rapid fire checklist. And with that,
thank you, everybody.